Oh, perfect. Zarvox was right there at 11 a.m.
She nailed it. Very good, Zarvox.
Zarvox is just back from the Tokyo Olympics, right? I don't know. Hey, did they have the typhoon that was supposed to come in after everybody left? I was camping and I missed the typhoon.
I completely missed the typhoon.
I was supposed to be jamming, I forgot. Sounds nice. This is fun. Hold out that note. It's good.
I will, as long as I can.
Russian hackers.
The Russian hackers, they are the worst.
All right, we're good to go. Listen, hey, good morning, Robert Strong.
Good morning, Richard Pollack.
Well, listen.
Nice to see you this morning.
It is nice to see you. I just rolled back in from one of our, extended camping trips in the wilds of wild, wonderful West Virginia.
Well, one of the things about wild, wonderful West Virginia is it is actually wild and wonderful.
What? Wait.
There was a governor that we had a while back who actually.
I know where you're going.
And this just blows my mind. He actually took the phrase "wild and wonderful West Virginia," that every single person in West Virginia thinks is fantastic, and changed it to open for business. Changed the signs, changed the maps, changed everything. There was an outcry that you couldn't believe.
Well, that was me. I was outcrying.
That was everybody else. There was 1.8 million West Virginians screaming at the top of their voices, and he went, I didn't know anyone noticed. And used taxpayer money, of course, to change it back.
So the nice thing is, I think all of those signs were then sold to Pizza Hut and they repainted them.
I certainly hope so, because that was a lot of money. Taxpayer money.
I am going to say I do love the fact that one of the things that you can do, even as everybody tries to, I was going to say adjust and then readjust again to, the various COVID issues we're dealing with. One of the things that is pretty true is if you can be camping outside where you're definitely separated from people, and you're maybe fishing in some fishing hole where there's nobody else but you and a couple of fishing worms. That's right. Then it's a good thing to do, and so many people have adopted that interesting lifestyle.
I think it's a great idea.
I ran into some real interesting people camping. We happen to have a scamp trailer, a little scamp camper.
It is really cute.
And I ran into a guy who has one that looked identical to it, but it was made back in 65 or something like that, by a company called Bowler, which is a Canadian company, and he had the whole evolution of how so a Canadian company that basically started off making septic tanks.
Well, that's why those look like that.
Well, I mean, it's really funny because I love this
septic tanks.
I love this in terms
septic tanks on wheels.
Well, engineering and innovation are one of the things that you and I have always liked. So the thing that's so beautiful is he's in Canada, don't you know?
Don't you know?
And of course people camp and fish and everything. And so one of the coolest things that he realized as they moved from all like concrete septic tanks, that's all they had, this new technology of fiberglassing where they could make basically two molds, like a top and a bottom mold, and it would seal.
Just seal them.
And so he'd done that, and then whether he was going to go ice fishing or something, whatever it was, he thought, boy, this would be just perfect. You could insulate this, and he started making a couple little prototype, campers with that that mold in place.
Wow.
And after modifications, basically it fostered like a whole series of really nice composite material campers.
Yeah.
So anyway, enough about me. Let's talk science.
Enough about you. Hey, so you folks are turning into Radio Science News. This is August 14th, 2021. This is episode number 799 in a series. If you're into prime numbers, $7.99 looks like it could be a prime number, but it's actually the composite of the factors, the prime factors, 17 and 47.
Oh, those are cool ones.
Those are great ones.
And
I
only
really
two.
like that.
Only
and
two.
Only two.
That's
for a
cool.
number as large as 799.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to get rolling. I'm going to say I had some problems coming home. We had a lot of storms and lightning and stuff, and power went out, and I managed to leave my, well, when I say my older computer, my MacBook that I do most everything on, the charge was down, and I thought, no big problem. And it wasn't completely, I don't think it suffered any kind of like lightning shock, but it just wouldn't work. So today I'm using I have a new MacBook Pro that I've had in reserve for just this very situation.
It's a beauty too.
Oh,
it's thin, it's sleek.
Oh, do you know what color this is, Robert?
It's like a slate gray.
It's space gray. That's what they call it.
Space gray.
I'm sure Elon.
I'm not sure what exactly that means.
I don't know, but
because if I was gonna call something space, it would be space black.
Well, but then I wouldn't be able to find it. I mean, it's
That's
hard
true.
enough to see where it is right now. Okay, so anyway, I'm set to go, and I have a bunch of topics. Last week,
do.
Libby and I had a great time talking about a lot of really good stuff.
So let me get our audience there.
Get them onto the page.
If you're tuned in to Radio Science News and you would like to follow Richard and I on the launchpad of science, if you go to my favorite webpage on the internet, which is www.smartcenter.org, SmartCenter.org, that'll take you to the Smart Center page. And wonderful thing about the Smart Center page, besides all this stuff about our GEMS camp that finished just a couple weeks ago and so forth, is a link to Radio Science News. So if you find that just above the little trifecta rainbows there that say Radio Science News in triplicate, I'm going to click on the words Radio Science News. Ooh, and that takes me right to the launch pad of science, which Richard lovingly puts up every single week.
Just about every week.
799 weeks.
That's right.
For your sciencing convenience. I'm real excited. This is very cool. We've got variants.
Now, we covered, Libby and I got into just the first two. We're going to ditch those.
And Batwoman. So you and Libby, I was having a little let's call it digestive problems.
Well, hey, I'll call it whatever you want to call it.
And was sort of out of a sequence there for a little while. So you guys did variants and Batwoman.
Yeah, we were just beginning to enter into a discussion of pneumococcus, as most people
pneumococcus.
did. But the thing that I want to say is today, as I was coming in, I think I was listening to one of the maybe CNN or something that. I'm thinking of Ted Bradstrom here. He should have reported the earthquake, apparently. And I think that the last thing I heard was the earthquake in Haiti, which, as you said, was, what did you say, it was 7?
It was 7.2.
And at the time I was listening to this radio broadcast about it, first they were just concerned that the country's in such disarray anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's got some problems.
But they said, look, the infrastructure to deal with a lot of this is there, even though there's some issues about who's in charge of the country. Right. But it was still kind of up in the air whether there were tsunami issues or not.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to say that one of the things that we do like about doing Radio Science News pretty much real time, as they say in the computer biz. We're doing this right now. This information is yet to come in, and there may be something that we could talk about now.
We'll need to do a little search.
Well, anyway, but we've got some stories about dopamine, some look at the composition of Stonehenge, and I'm going to tell you a story that I think is maybe the scariest story. Well, snake spiders is scary, but right next to it is the Atlantic Meridional Ocean Current, AMOC.
Yeah.
And there's some new stuff about
Libby
that's troubling.
Libby was mentioning to me the other day, she saw a little article that things appear to be slowing down.
Well, the part
and I'm hoping that is not the case.
We have probably covered that story where people have said, like, data points have come in. Mm-hmm. But this is one that, it may be a little more definitive. It's covering like a large period in the past, and it looks like that could be a big issue. Anyway, snake spiders, COVID music, moon magnet. I saved moon magnet, stronger than well, anyway. But moon magnet is something I thought you would be really interested in.
That's fascinating.
Some cool things about the Perseverance, the Mars rover, the stuff's going on. Some cool hydrogen stuff. Thermoelectric. I think that is pretty cool. Like I said, we got to touch on some of these, but I knew these were.
The chart.
Well, and let's hit the chart just real quickly
right.
because I'm just going to say we are in the middle of some real issues here.
Yeah, we certainly are.
Everybody understands it. I think my chart
Okay,
didn't go. There it goes.
demystifying the Delta variant with data. It says with the rise of the new variants of the SARS-CoV virus, U.S. public health officials will struggle to quickly spot localized infection surges without the frequent granular reporting that many states are discontinuing.
Now just listen to that sentence right there.
I don't like
Wow.
when you take the time to not continue reporting
What
the
does
way
that
you've
mean?
done,
What does
that
that
means
mean?
that
You've got
anybody
something
that's
to
been
hide?
keeping track
Yeah.
and is doing a graph, their graph ends.
Well, yeah, and
Because if you don't have the data points the same way that they were before, you can't put them on the same graph.
Yeah.
Which means that your graph comes to a halt.
and it means everything's okay, right? No, it doesn't.
That's what somebody wants you to think.
Well, anyway, this, and I was thinking
I
that
don't
they
like
would.
that.
I was thinking they were going to continue to update this, but I think you're right. They've literally said that a lot of the data is not coming in. But I know that everybody is watching all this information, and as Libby and I were talking last week, I said there's one big message that we need to give everybody, and that is please get your vaccination.
Yes.
Vaccinate and tell everybody around you to get your vaccination. Actually, this looks like it hasn't been updated because I know.
I don't understand. There are people that claim that they don't know how much it costs. Folks, it's free. There are people that claim that they don't know where to get it.
Everywhere.
And for months, people have been screaming at you and pointing to the place to go get it.
Yeah, you can walk to your Walgreens.
I don't understand. It mystifies me that anybody
Has
that
any questions?
can breathe on their own.
Ironic that you said that.
Yes, that can breathe on their own is going, COVID-19, there are vaccines and they're free and I can get them. And, where have you been?
Well,
There are people dropping like flies, folks, and if you don't have your vaccine, you're a fly. Get it done. You are affecting yourself, your family, your friends,
the world,
the economy. Schools will not start because you will not get your act together. Get your act together.
yeah.
I can't be any more plain than that. Stop being a problem.
Be a solution. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really something. So anyway, there's so much going on with all that, and the latest thing I know people have heard that there even is now. For people that are immune compromised,
Oh, yeah.
they're actually going to make it, that without too much trouble, you can go in and get the thing that I saw that was interesting is that to cut through a lot of the red tape, they're not demanding that you bring like a note from all kinds of stuff from.
Sure.
If you know that you are immune compromised or at risk, they're basically saying, hey, they're just going to err on the side of if you need it. And one of the things that I found interesting, and I had corroborated with my son-in-law, the pharmacist, some people were recommending that if you got the Pfizer, that you could augment it by getting your third booster as the Moderna, because they feel that there were some differences between the two vaccines that may give you a slightly broader, antibody spread in terms of protection.
And I just want to say, for the people who are for some reason listening to people who don't know what they're talking about, listen to us for just a moment, okay? When people go, well, but they never said they didn't need a booster. Nobody ever said you didn't need a booster. Yeah. There's no vaccine that doesn't need a booster. This is a flu. The reason that you get a flu vaccine every year,
it changes.
Because number one, things change, and number two, it's a booster. Yeah. It's a booster for the next change.
And note that what they're really saying is that this is primarily for people that had, and I personally know somebody who, if for example, if you had a bone marrow transplant, if you were a cancer patient that had an autologous bone marrow transplant, one of the things they're noting is that they're not able to produce as much antibody protection, and so that's the whole point. Is for normal people, they're saying if you've already had your vaccination, you're probably fine. But if you fall into that category, please pay attention to that. So,
please.
All right, so let's just drop through a bunch of these stories.
Let's do that.
Quick thing on and again, a lot of these stories make me feel good because you note that while there's all sorts of bad news everywhere, it seems, if you're paying attention to stuff in science, you know that there are good things happening all the time. This one is really cool. This whole article is talking about a very serious, they're talking about, many people know that antibiotics are troublesome in that we've developed all kinds of resistances and all sorts of strange things that we have to deal with because it's not, people always go, well, the bacteria or the virus outsmarted us. No, it's just
the virus is not smart.
It just reproduces so quickly, and then if it works, it does better. If it doesn't work, it dies out.
Right.
The problem is with viruses or bacteria that are reproducing quickly, they can elude strategies that we come with because we take a lot of time to do it.
When you're saying that a virus is outsmarting you, it's like saying that you've got a computer program that you're playing a game with.
Yeah.
You can see maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4 moves in advance. The computer's playing every move.
Yeah, and then it figures out which one works.
And the reason that it can play every move is that it can do it fast. This is the way that a virus works. A virus or a bacterium. There's millions or billions of them, and they reproduce quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And every reproduction has a teeny tiny little change in it. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're larger, but there's always a change.
And they're usually irrelevant.
Yes.
They're usually.
But every now and then you get a change that changes it enough so that we go, ooh, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's outsmarting us, it's that we're being stupid and not getting rid of it before it can change.
That's it.
So if you're talking about something's been outsmarted, we've outsmarted ourselves.
Yeah. Or we've outdumbed ourselves.
We've outdumbed ourselves.
Now, and the other thing that is clearly a mechanism, say with antibiotics, is, and we've often talked about this with science project kids that are going to kill 99.999% of bacteria with a particular thing. One of the things you have to realize that in terms of it's like when I go fishing, Robert. See, so there's a whole bunch
Here comes the fishing story.
I was talking to some guy.
How big was it?
And that's what I was saying. I was talking to some guy, and he always talking about catching these big all kinds of stuff. And I said, basically, well, first of all, I said, if I caught a big 40-inch plus muscalunge, I would.
That's a big fish.
You can't keep them until they're that big. I said,
really, you can't?
And I was telling, because that's one of the things. And people do catch this.
Because it doesn't fit in the frying pan.
Well, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But because they're trying to bring, they're maintaining the thing, and it's like a breed. And I said, well, first of all, I'm basically catch and release. I always fish with barbless hooks. First of all, because I got one stuck in my head.
Oh,
once,
they're
I never
bad.
I never
don't ever want to be there again.
I don't want to do that again. So I'm catch and release.
I only use barbless hooks.
So I'm catch and release, and I said that if I were to pull in a 40-inch plus muscalunge, I would feel like I was like taking out a senior citizen.
Yes,
and I'm against that.
Would be absolutely.
But here's my point. People say, God, do you have a point with this? I said, yes, I do. If I go into some little place, which as I did this last week at a friend's camp, where the water was low and they just had a couple pools here and there that they would swim in, they said, I don't know if there's any fish in there. Well, it turned out I went in with just my little barbless hook and some little, thing that looked like a grub and threw it, and I was catching little 8 or 10-inch brown trout.
Cool.
Now the thing is, I catch them, I pull them in, and I release them, and I tell each one, don't bite that thing again.
Do not do that again.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you're a fish and you're going to be in a school of fish, you need to learn something. So what I basically was doing, I'm subjecting them to something. And if they survive it, and not that you're going to impose the fact that a bacteria has a memory or a virus has a memory, but having survived something that, and then in the case of fish, they're smart enough not to bite that same thing again. But there's the concern that even as we treat these viruses, I worry that we're we're training them to be.
I think we are.
We're just going to have to watch that. But anyway,
we need to be very
the
careful.
neat thing about this is that as viruses and bacteria, impinge upon us, we're trying to figure out, and that's why it's so important to base your approach on science. This particular story is so cool because it basically turns out that the pneumococcus bacteria, one of the world's deadliest organisms, and listen to this,
responsible for more than 1 million deaths each year, and is the leading infectious cause of mortality in children under 5.
Now, this is really a terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, and
that's pretty disturbing.
Well, it is. It's and like I said, in the scale, when you look at what we're contending with now, it's not that we could ignore this.
Did not know
but
that.
Here's the part that's so cool. By thinking sort of outside of the box, down here it says all organisms, including these pathogens, need vitamins and minerals. So
to survive.
So what they basically found out is that they could, rather than trying to use some weird chemicals and all kinds of complicated stuff,
so you're going to make them
deprive it
hungry and starve them?
Well, it deprives it. They found a mechanism to deprive it of manganese.
Oh, how it took manganese from the body wasn't understood.
And here it's down here at the bottom.
So it says researchers knew that manganese was critical for survival of the pneumococcus.
Yeah, and like
that's really
so 2 paragraphs in the bottom, it says it's really attractive therapeutic target. It sits on the surface of the bacterium in our bodies. It's a gateway. So they were able to close a gateway on the surface of the bacterium itself to prevent manganese. And so, as you said, it's like starving it because, but it's doing it in a way that doesn't impinge upon the function of our bodies. So, I mean, I love this kind of stuff. And
wow, that is brilliant.
Well, and somebody actually, I was talking about doing the radio science news, and they said, well, what's one of the coolest stories that you and I will often talk after a show about what is one of the most interesting things that you've run across. And I said, in fact, if we go back to, I'm going to go back to the launch pad of science, see if it's the, it was the one ultrasound. So back on July 31st, and if you want to click on it, because we can, we're kind of free form here, and I like bouncing back. This was one of the coolest stories. And you see this picture of a simulation of at first you're going, it looks like a piñata at a very sad birthday party. But what you have is there's a little image of that's an artist's rendition. Now you notice that
simulation show ultrasound waves at medical imaging frequencies can cause the virus shell and spikes to collapse. And when they say the virus shell, they're talking about the COVID-19.
Yeah, and so one of the
and rupture.
Well, here's the fascinating thing to me. You and I have often talked about it. We're big fans of Nikola Tesla. Mm-hmm. He did some amazing things, and I had pointed out to someone that he once said, I think he was in New York City, and they were interviewing him about being such a genius, and because now they had alternating current, and I think initially New York was going to use direct current, but they found out that they could put a huge dam up at the base of Niagara Falls and sell electricity, and everybody was going to be making money. And he said, well, to explain a lot about what he was doing, he said it had to do with resonances. I think he pointed, whether the story's true or not, he talked about the Empire State Building or something. He said, if I knew the exact resonance of that structure,
frequency. Yes.
If I knew the frequency with very little energy, by gradually, like if somebody has ever seen like a gong where they gently get it started, and then it just makes a huge noise. Right. So this image that's here on the launch pad of science of the structure of the coronavirus that we're dealing with now, they know the exact dimensions. And these are MIT guys. They're in like mechanical engineering.
They know what they're doing.
Well, and the fact that you can take different disciplines of research and come up with out-of-the-box really cool concepts like this. I mean, this is really wonderful.
So you're saying that the COVID virus will hum
literally
at a particular frequency, and if you can find that hum, it will itself begin to hum.
It'll start.
And then it will shake. And then it will tear itself apart.
I'm just going to refer to Jerry Lee Lewis's song "Whole Lot of Shaking Going On."
Whole lot of shaking going on. Yep, I like that.
Now here's
a great idea.
So here's the cool thing. Within this structure, they had 2 easily identifiable physical structures. Now we think of a virus as so tiny, but it has to still obey the laws of physics and all that stuff. Now, the part that I thought was unbelievable was, so they have the spike proteins. That's one thing that they can resonate. But then the actual shell itself is able to be vibrated.
So you can tear off the spikes, and then you can rupture the whole cell.
And the part of it was
well, not the cell.
Once they decided using mathematics and just like the kind of things that you would say, well, Robert, I've got a guitar string and I need to figure out what it vibrates. They did that, and the part that was wonderful is it turns out that the vibrations that this thing would be most vulnerable to are within the frequencies that are just used in typical medical ultrasound.
So all they have to do is say, okay, I
tune
can
it,
image you with ultrasound at the right frequency and possibly kill this.
Okay, now I feel like a commercial for Poe Peel. But wait,
there's more.
But wait. So here's the other part that it was just absolutely fascinating. These frequencies, these ultrasound frequencies that could impinge on the virus, can be delivered in the atmosphere in a gas state or a liquid state.
Oh.
So in other words, this is the kind of thing that this particular ultrasound, we all sort of know that most of our bloodstreams are a liquid state.
They are a liquid state.
This thing could actually be, you could deliver this. I mean, I don't want to sound like, I can remember we had a president once that was talking about shining lights and doing strange things. This is an out of the box. At that time, we said, okay, I know it's easy to make fun of somebody for being out of the box who doesn't understand.
But he was at least trying.
He was also looking in a direction that if somebody, I mean, a lot of times when people think out of the box or brainstorm with a bunch of people, one of the best groups of people to brainstorm with are people who don't understand the thing completely, because sometimes they'll come up with things that'll sound like the idea of, well, maybe we could shine these lights and you go, well, that's possible, but that's not a good idea. You know what might work is if you could have an ultrasound frequency that you could just apply to the aqueous system of a human body that would absolutely be harmless to blood cells and other things, but would shake the spikes off of a coronavirus.
Would shake and then completely shatter the COVID-19 virus.
Well, and I mean, so anyway, this is just really a fascinating thing, and I'm looking forward to where this goes from here.
So have they done?
Well,
have they done medical trials?
This has just come out. I mean, it's like so new that it's like one of those things that.
I mean, because what you want to do is you want to take somebody that's near death, and just start zapping them with this.
Well, and I'm looking further down. It's talking about, it says to refine and validate the team is going to work with microbiologists around the world. My only I want to say, jump on it. Try to get to a point where you can do it a little. But they're talking about the fact that if ultrasound can be experimentally proven to damage coronaviruses, and the damage can be shown to have therapeutic effect, the team envisions ultrasound, which is already used to break it. Now everybody understands lithotripsy, where they use ultrasound and shock waves to break up kidney stones, and like they have liposomes where they put certain drugs in your body and then they release them. I mean, this is already done in a way.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was talking to a doctor for my little plumbing problems. One of the things that he said, now you might be able to depending upon the situation and the way things are, there's a green laser therapy.
Yeah.
And they put a frequency of green laser that will only destroy certain kinds of cells.
We're in the same kind of a realm.
Exactly the same concept.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, because and again, I'm not. Listen, I'm going to have to say that there's so many things that came out of certain ex-presidents' statements that I just couldn't even bother to address. Right. But I actually defended the fact that somebody would just throw ideas out there.
Say, hey, what if? See the wonderful thing about throwing out an idea is that it's okay to throw out an idea. There are no bad ideas.
That's right. These are just possibilities.
And so the nice thing about throwing out a bad idea is that it starts a conversation.
Yeah, and it usually starts and oftentimes if it comes from somebody, if you're an academic person or you're in a particular, say, medical discipline, you are really well trained in certain things,
Yes.
and sometimes you can become. They always talk about like in the CIA and the FBI that they had the problem because they were smokestack.
Yeah.
People just had their own little
Yes.
separate thing.
And when I say there are no bad ideas, the problem is that there are people that think that there are bad ideas, and the people that think there are bad ideas are usually the people that know the most about things. And so before the conversation even starts, they say, no, that's not going to work,
Nah.
and it ends. And so the nice thing about somebody that doesn't know a lot about something is that they
Right.
can throw out an idea that might lead to a better idea.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
usually the way
So
it
it's
goes.
not a bad idea, it's just something that might lead to another idea.
It can evolve into a better thing. In
Yes.
fact, just as you and I were sitting, I'm talking about the ultrasound thing these people have talked about, and you mentioned the fact that, and this is absolutely, I mean, if you know the morphology of a virus and you're going to go after making it vibrate and fall apart, there are going to be some people that are going to say, well, what the virus structure, I'm even looking at this picture. You
Right.
notice they always show it, they show it with false colors,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So here's the thing. As you point
Head
out,
spikes for some reason.
as you point out the fact that there is, well, let's pretend that this is actually, Lord, if this were actually the color.
Real,
See,
yes.
like I'm having this conversation with a bunch of scientists who really know their stuff, and I say, well, because if you know the composition of these things,
Right.
you could determine what frequencies it absorbs, what frequency it reflects. And if I were looking at this, I would say, well, Robert, because it looks like these structures are actually red, that means it absorbs green and reflects red.
Right.
And I would say, that green laser thing that you were talking about, it may be
valid.
It may be that by forcing this virus to be in an environment where it absorbs that frequency of green, it would overheat and fall apart
Right.
too. So anyway, there's so many things that are
Wow,
possible.
This is really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm going to look here at dopamine. Feel good brain messenger. I'm feeling better all the time. Now
Feeling better already,
Well,
huh?
this really struck me because I've often, a lot of people, I've heard people say, well, they just want to be cranky. It just makes them.
I don't mind being cranky.
Well, and then there's everybody always remembers the famous thing: if it makes you feel good to sing the blues, go ahead and do it.
Right.
And you're thinking, wait a minute, what? But this is a piece of like good news because they talk about the feel good brain messenger dopamine.
Can be willfully controlled.
Yeah, and so
Oh, that's
I'm thinking,
nice to
wait
know.
a minute. So, and now again, a very complicated thing. You're going, so this is with happy mice. I'm sure Mickey Mouse and Minnie.
I'm sure they are.
It says that mice can learn
Drugged.
to manipulate random dopamine impulses for
For
reward.
a reward.
So, read the summary here, and we'll see if it makes sense to us.
Researchers have discovered that spontaneous impulses of dopamine, the neurological messenger known as the brain's feel-good chemical, occur in the brain of mice. The study found that mice can willfully manipulate these random dopamine pulses for reward. So how do they do that?
Oh, well, that's like I said, the design of the experiments really. Oh, now, see, this makes perfect sense. From the thrill of hearing an ice cream truck approaching to the spikes of pleasure
don't
while
even get
sipping
me
a
started.
fine wine, the neurological messenger known as dopamine has been described as the feel good. I feel good like I do that. So, but the idea that they've sort of done they literally set up. Okay, he says critically, mice learned to elicit dopamine prior to receiving a reward. So in other words, I'm trying to figure out where they, when you look at psychology, a lot of times, people do this or they do that. Like the classic thing where the professor walks around the room and every time he stands by a certain spot, everybody brightens up and,
Right.
So in other words, he was kind of randomly doing stuff and then they gave him a reward.
Okay.
So what happened was then he would keep doing it.
Right.
So I'm not sure exactly how they put this together, and it's not important, but they were able to do that, and this started as a serendipitous finding by a talented, curious graduate student.
So we're saying that the dopamine isn't the reward.
No.
The dopamine happens because of the reward.
Yeah, the dopamine would be like I'm going to walk like a little poodle would be walking on his hind legs, and
Right.
you would give him a piece of, chopped
Steak.
liver
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
So, but isn't that a fascinating thing?
That is a fascinating
But
thing.
the part about it that is fascinating is that knowing that a mammalian species like a mouse,
Like a mouse.
or maybe a human,
Like a human.
are we not all men? No. So, so I'm just going to say
Half of us, at least.
it's going to make us understand that when people talk about all kinds of different stuff, there are mechanisms within our body that somehow, if we understood, we may be able to train ourselves to be more cheerful and stuff.
That sounds good.
Like maybe get an ice cream truck to drive past our houses
every 5 minutes.
day. Yeah. Anyway, very cool thing. And like I said, the implications of this, I think, are just really fascinating. The dopamine response.
I like that. Go, mice, go.
Go, mice, go. All right, now listen, Stonehenge, which has so many mysterious things. And usually, Stonehenge, if then, ancient aliens, on and on and on. But this is this cool little picture. It almost looks like the false color image we looked before, but I know it's
Says
not.
analysis of returned Stonehenge core sample helps explain megalith's durability.
Yeah, why are they so?
So it's been there for like 5,000 years. At
Right.
least that's what the ancient astronaut theorists propose.
And if
so,
they're wondering why it survived so long. In other words, and again, that's a big question: is did they understand? Oh, this is really hard. Let's use this.
Sure.
Or maybe was it treated by the levitation rays of ancient?
Probably.
We don't know that too.
Says they found that the stone is 99.7% quartz.
Wow, and I kind of expected.
And that there were different grain sizes, one of them which they describe as medium in size, form an interlocking mosaic of crystals, which the researchers noted served as a sort of cement and explained how the stones that made up Stonehenge have managed to survive for so long.
Yeah, and then it does point out, it says, and again, when they say it may have, the researchers suggest that Neolithic people who erected them may have known of the stone's durability and chose that for longevity.
Sure.
And one of the things I know you and I have talked about often is that people who lived long ago and, then thus qualified as Neolithic people, they could have been Paleolithic, but these were Neolithic.
These are Neos.
They were new to this whole thing. They actually had an understanding of the tools and things they work with.
Sure. I mean, if you take your stone tool and you bang it against the rock and your stone tool breaks, you go, this is some hard stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Wow, and I'm just scrolling down because first of all, if you look at that image, you're seeing that they're basically showing you that, like any good composite material, you have different sizes and they form a structure that's interlocking. Now, if I scroll down, I'm seeing a scary thing here, Robert.
What's that scary thing?
I'm scared. The related stories.
Okay.
Well, one,
Stonehenge likely made with stones from older monuments.
Well, first of all, I'm thinking that is absolutely cool.
That's fascinating.
But look at the one right below it.
Uncovering the acoustical properties of Stonehenge.
Do you know what they're going to do? They're going to blow it apart with.
No, please don't do that.
No, they're not. Tesla could do it if he wanted to. When I say Tesla, I'm not talking about the guy that makes you think of Tesla these days.
No.
Anyway, so that is a cool story on these.
That is a very cool story.
Composite materials really fascinate me. Now this thing about, we're going to the one, it's called amok. It almost sounds like it almost sounds like I'm running amok, or it sounds like if you were a science fiction writer that couldn't think of a better thing, you would call some weird god on a planet amok.
Amok.
But this stands for the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. And if you're not familiar with this story comes up often, and it's usually based on some another data point in the AMOC, the Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC, in the Atlantic, and I will say that there are similar circulatory mechanisms all around the planet, and they interrelate. So it's like changing any one of them could be a big deal. And so now down here it says the major Atlantic Ocean current to which the Gulf Stream belongs, so the Gulf Stream is just a part of it, according to this story, may have been losing stability over the last century.
Yeah.
New story in Nature Climate Change. So basically it says it transports warm water from the tropics, and they're on the surface, and because they're heated by the sun, they're getting warm. Now, they can't travel just because of that, because they're warm. It's not like, they're going to rise to the North Pole or something. What the big part of what drives this system and why it's been so critical or important to people studying climate change is that it counts on having like dense, heavy salt water. Now, if you have just a stable system of dense, heavy salt water that's up in the Arctic regions, when it gets cold, it drops.
It will sink.
It sinks and it drags the warm water north.
And being that you're just not going to have a big hole in the ocean, the water has to fill in that gap. And so what it does, the lighter, warmer water then travels north to fill that in. And so what you then get is this beautiful cycle that's built up.
Yeah, it looks like a and it is a conveyor. It's like a conveyor belt that's going. You think of it. Yeah, the Mid-Atlantic conveyor. And
thank you, Miss Libby.
And Libby is very correct that again, and that's just a part of it. The Mid-Atlantic conveyor is a part of their systems that go from Africa across. And they're all connected.
So anytime that you've got a dense, cold region and a warm, less dense region, you're gonna set these things up.
Wow.
And what's going to happen is, of course, the warm water is going to move to the colder
poles?
region. The colder water is going to then move to the warmer regions. And what's going to happen is, which makes perfect sense, is that when the cold water goes to the warmer regions, it's going to cool off the warmer regions, and when the warmer water goes to the cooler regions, it's going to warm those up, and it's going to make the overall temperature of the Earth not change, but it's going to change the temperatures of the colder north. It's going to warm those up.
That's right.
And it's going to cool off the warmer south. And if these things shut off, then what happens is the cold north gets colder and the hot south gets hotter. Which is a really bad idea.
Yeah, those differentials will.
We'll start to spike.
We're in hurricane season now. We're going to be.
Which is a bad idea.
There's one approaching now, which we aren't covering today. But it's basically it says down here that what they're looking at is the fact that we could be losing dynamic stability, which could lead to a total collapse. And this has a lot to do with fresh water diluting the heavy saline, the salinity of water that's in the northern part of the oceans. And
to make this thing work, you've got to have extremely cold and therefore dense water in the Arctic.
Yep.
But now that you've got a Greenland ice sheets melting, what you now have is you've got water, fresh water, which is not as dense as salt water, running off those. And so rather than having cold, dense water, you now have cold, fresh water, which is not as dense and is slowing down the conveyor.
Or as they're concerned,
it might stop the conveyor.
It says long-term observational data does not. It says unfortunately does not exist because we haven't been studying it that long. But we're talking about over a century. There was there was a scary sentence here. Loss of dynamic stability could ultimately lead to collapse, and it says they believe. It says here it has been shown previously that the AMOC is at its weakest in more than 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. But they're saying it's an open question whether this is, how it's moving. But this data, this latest, data points that they have here show that, right here's the sentence I was looking for. The findings support the assessment that the AMOC decline is not just a fluctuation or a linear response to increasing temperatures, but likely means the approaching of a critical threshold beyond which the circulation system could collapse.
Oh, that would be a horrible.
I wish this is where I would say, let me read that, but no, I don't want to read that again. That was tough.
I don't want to see that. If that's the case, then Europe is in for some major league cold storms.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not going to say that anybody who looks around is. I did hear one way we were talking about how hot it was in southern middle of West Virginia, places like Audra State Park, where usually you just see the top of a few big rocks and people, it's deep and you can swim. Now it's like a rock garden. It's
it really?
Oh, it is so dry. And then somebody who was was saying, oh, well, we just got a call from Tigert Lake State
Yeah.
Park that everybody has to take their boats out because the lake is now so low that all of the docks and things like that are going to be sitting on the bottom or sitting on this thing. Now, they always do take the dock systems out and everything in the wintertime, take them out of the water, and then they lower the
wintertime.
and then they lower the
This is,
dam. But literally, they were saying they all just got a call that you all have to take your, the marinas and everything are going to be taken out because they've gotten too low.
Wow.
And anyway, and then that was followed with a statement by this person that said, well, but you can't do anything about the weather. And I said,
Oh, yes, you can.
except maybe, wreck it. But
Change it.
I didn't want to get into it too much, but I was thinking to myself, it's just we're sitting here when we're having like a perceived. This is the middle of August, and you expect it to be hot. We didn't even get into the dog days of August, but they always talk about the feels like temperature.
Yeah.
And so everybody was saying, oh, well, it's like the feels like it's like 105 out there, 110.
Whoa.
And we're like, I'm going, oh my goodness, it really is.
Yeah.
Well, Robert, listen, this will cleanse your palate of all that.
So what's the snake spiders?
Snake spiders.
So are these snakes that look like spiders or spiders that look like snakes?
It could be worse.
Oh.
How about snake-eating spiders?
Oh, okay.
Well, you know what, Robert? This will make you feel better. Snake-eating spiders are surprisingly common. Well, isn't that nice? No. Hey, I will tell you that the fact that the water was so low in these places, it made me go look out and see if I could find some fishing hole that was really good because all the fish would be trapped there and I could just train them not to bite hooks anymore. And I didn't really find much good
Training the fish.
I'm training the
Don't
fish.
do that.
Don't bite these hooks anymore.
So there's a picture of a brown, it says brown widow spider.
Brown widow.
Inspects a common garter snake trapped in its web. So, okay, so this is a...
Oh, sure, go ahead and expect
a garter snake.
It's a little one.
It's a tiny garter snake.
Oh, you think that's tiny? Okay. So, wow. Of course, people are listening to my radio show. They're going, I'm showing Robert something. This doesn't have any spiders
typical
in it.
dinner's menu include insects, worms, even small lizards and frogs. But some arachnids have more adventurous tastes. They can eat snakes up to 30 times their size. Now, is this 30 times their mass,
I don't
30
know.
times their length, 30 times their volume? When people say size, I never know. What is that? What?
Don't look.
No.
Don't look, Robert.
Yikes.
It's a brown widow spider, and it's a scarlet snake in. Where is this? I hope it's not in the United States. Oh my gosh, it's in Georgia. Georgia.
It looks like a king snake.
Yeah, it is. It just says a scarlet snake, which is probably related.
It's a young king snake.
Of course,
Whoa.
now we know that
There's a nasty, horrible, looking, hideous spider.
And by the way, these are for your viewing on Radio Science News. The lake is there.
As seen from space.
Oh, and this, well, and see this particular, like these images are great. The last one is
42 kilometers across.
It's
this giant spider could eat any snake.
It's not that big. Come on, it's a Goliath bird eater.
Oh, it's a big one.
Which is the world's largest.
Yes, the world's.
Now, the only thing I'm going to point out to you is that I have on my camera. This is while I was out in the at Audra State Park.
Yes.
Which is Middle Fork River that runs in the Tiger.
It's a beautiful park.
It's a beautiful park.
Very
close to where you went to school.
Very close to where I went to school.
That's where you probably.
In fact, that was close enough that some friends of mine, we got on some
like tubes and stuff.
Some little bicycles.
Oh,
and we bicycled out and then tubed back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, listen, that's a very beautiful part. Buchanan, Philippi.
Oh, I
the
love that
Buchanan
area.
River is one of the best kept secrets.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yes, it is.
so on the whatever, this is one of the forks that joins with the joins with the Tiger, and then right after that the Buchanan River joins that. But underneath one of these areas, I looked and I saw a huge fossil. Robert says, huge fossil? How huge was it? Well, I have pictures of how huge it was. So,
whoa, that's gorgeous.
So it was, it's like, my wife says that if it was over 2 tons, I shouldn't even consider bringing it home.
Yeah,
but
right.
I am like catch and release. I leave fossils in place, especially when they're, and this is obviously some big tropical, like lepidodendron, one of those things that.
Yep.
But it was
That's
gorgeous.
exactly what it looks like.
So I took a lot of
Beautiful.
pictures of it. Now the part that was fun, if you look at these pictures, you'll notice that that as you should with any good fossil, I have included an index device
To
index
to show scale.
because I'm going to send this to our good friend Ray Garton.
Good.
And what he'll do is he'll take his fossil experts and they'll say, oh, I can tell the spacing of the, this is like it wasn't exactly, you might think of it as a tree, but it wouldn't be a tree. Could have been maybe 200 or 300 feet.
Yeah.
These, like I'm thinking the lepidodendron was one that formed your coal beds, but it was giant swamps that were here, and this is some of the leftover materials from that. So you see that little tiny, I found, not that it was a good thing to find trash in the river, but here was a pop top from a soda thing.
From a soda can.
But I did notice that there was a little piece that looked like it might be cracked off down here.
Okay.
And I thought that if the little piece could be, I would take just a little piece of it. Yeah, I mean, it was sturdy, but as I moved the rocks to do that, I found a snake under the rock.
What kind of white snake is
And
that?
I don't know what it is, but look.
It's
look,
really cute.
you notice the index, I
It's
used
tiny.
This thing is probably maybe 3 or 4 inches long.
Long, maybe.
I'm pretty sure it's some sort of a
Wow.
water snake that by the color of it, and I could tell that it's not poisonous. But anyway,
How could you tell it's not poisonous?
well, I let it bite me several times.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't.
And you're going, I don't feel too bad.
No, you could. But this is a fairly, I think, a common like brown
Yeah.
water snake.
That's exactly
But
what it looks like.
but this is the size.
It's really cute.
When you look at the size that we're looking at on the
That could easily be eaten by a spider. Yep.
And the part that's scary about the
Wow.
snake-eating spiders is that it's not like when they say a snake-eating spider, when they talk about it's more of a snake-drinking spider.
Yes, because they don't actually eat. They
What they
drink.
do,
Yes.
they have all kinds of mechanisms for paralyzing. As people know, spiders will. If you watch the Lord of the Rings series, you know that. Little Bilbo was tied up by anyway. That
When you see a wolf spider jump on something,
well.
it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, those things are neat. But
It says once the snake dies, spiders use enzymes
Enzymes.
to turn soft body parts into a soup that the arachnids suck into their stomach.
oh, that was delightful.
Yeah, that's pretty disturbing.
And here's the other part that I didn't know about spiders. They literally have a stomach that is. It says when you go to a hospital and they say we'll need the stomach pump. Well, that's not what they have. They have a pumping
They
stomach.
have a pumping stomach,
Wow.
which makes perfect sense.
Oh, and here's
it's almost like their stomach is attached to a rubbery straw. They have to kind of suck everything down.
I think you've read enough, Robert. You've
Again,
ruined my day.
More reasons to stomp on these
No,
things.
no,
They are
no.
hideous beings.
No, spiders.
Out to get us.
Spiders are so.
I do not
nice.
want. I want to be sucked down a straw.
No, don't-
a spider straw.
That's
A rubbery spider straw.
Whoever wrote that, the imagery was just terrible. Now I'll tell you what. I'm looking at our time. You know what? We'll probably not get through. I'll jump back. The one
We've got
about
about 7 minutes.
The one about COVID music is really interesting because they did a whole study on different wind instrument players and how much COVID virus load they might spew based on their
Spew? Oh.
yeah. So, but I'll tell you
That's
what. Let's
interesting.
jump over that. And we may get back to it. Let's go to Moon Magnet.
Moon magnet.
You'll like this because this is like right in your realm of. Because it basically says, Robert, you may not have heard of this, but it's something about data that will be gathered by the Artemis mission.
I like the Artemis mission.
I sort of like it.
I certainly hope that the Artemis mission gets there. The last that I saw just a few days ago,
Yeah.
they're going, well, maybe we're looking at,
There's a
November 2024, but we're having a little problem with the spacesuits and some other things, so
Well,
it might
yeah.
be September 25.
Who knows?
Yeah. So lunar samples solve mystery of the moon's supposed magnetic shield.
magnetic shield.
Researchers may help inform a new wave of lunar experiments based on data that will be gathered by the Artemis mission.
Wow.
Tests of glass samples gathered on Apollo mission show magnetization may result from impacts of objects like meteors, not as a result of magnetization from the presence of a magnetic shield.
Yeah, so that's an important thing because as you and I have talked about, as everybody decides that Elon Musk's going to go to Mars and everybody's going to be building colonies, and,
Yes.
and they will be.
They-
We'll be having habitations. One of the real things that people need to know is whether there will be some something that will protect, our weak little soft bodies that could be sucked down, stomach pump tubes. But
from the arachnids,
well,
the space spiders.
Spiders from Mars, we're already there, man. Ziggy Stardust and the spiders from Mars. So, I mean, a big thing to know is, for example, a lot of people thought, well, it'll be great because if the moon does have some sort of magnetic field that can protect us because of like as they say, a geodynamo type thing.
Yeah, we when there's a solar flare or cosmic rays, that kind of thing, it'd be nice to have a magnetic field that would at least deflect some of that energy. I like this. Did the moon ever have a magnetic field?
That's an interesting paragraph.
And this is one of those things that for years and years and years people have been bouncing back and forth. See, to have a magnetic field, you have to have a liquid core, and the liquid core has to be either an electrically conductive
like a nickel
core
iron
or nickel iron, something like that. So it says for years they've been studying the development of the Earth's magnetic shield as a means to understanding planetary evolution and environmental change. Earth's magnetic shield originates deep within the planet's core. Blah blah blah. The swirling liquid iron generates electric currents, driving a phenomenon known as geodynamo, which produces the shield.
Yeah.
But researchers have long recognized that it's vital for life on Earth's surface because it protects our planet from solar wind, streams of radiation from the sun, and cosmic radiation. But has Earth's moon ever had a magnetic shield? And this is one of those things that, the moon being 81.3 times less massive than the Earth, if it ever had a liquid core and it spun, it would have cooled off and slowed down real quick in the overall scheme of things. So,
and he says down here that based on the samples they have, it says if there had been a magnetic field on the moon, the samples that we studied should have acquired some magnetism, but they haven't.
Yeah.
And this is Dr. Tarduno, and he says that's pretty conclusive that the moon did not have a long-lasting dynamo field, if it had any one at all.
Right. So it might have had a short term, but it slowed down real quick.
Yeah. So that's a cool story. I mean, that's one of the.
In fact, it might have cooled off before the moon really its crust formed.
Yeah.
And so if that happened, then there's no way to lock the magnetic field into the surface
the
rocks.
materials. Yeah. So that was I thought that was a cool story.
That's a really cool story.
Now there's the thing about perseverance, but I want to run over the one thermoelectric. It's way over next to the chart there.
Yeah,
this is a
minute or so here.
Yeah, I'm looking at our time. Here's our see our little thing right there.
Oh,
that's what we'll base our.
Very cool. Okay, I'll
hopefully
watch that.
Keep your eye on.
I will keep my eye on the roll. So thermoelectric. So buzz about thermoelectric heats up with promising new magnesium-based materials.
Yeah. So here's again. This falls into, the things that, I mean, let's face it, we just love that nanotechnology stuff, right?
I love it.
The structure at the atomic level, the landing. Oh, this is interesting, but the first story I had was about Perseverance, which is now doing some interesting things on Mars. But it says the landing, this is two stories interrelated, the landing of NASA's Perseverance rover was another leap forward, not only for space exploration, but for the technology that's powering the craft on its years-long mission. The idea of a thermoelectric generator. I mean, the thing that's so cool is we all get familiar with photovoltaic things. And, there's a big deal. But for years and years, and I have to confess, Robert, one time I actually did a science project on this, but using sandwich coins to basically show that, you
awesome.
Dissimilar metals,
there you
blah,
go.
blah,
I
blah.
love it.
Anyway, but this is so cool because they're basically, it says, contrary to prevailing scientific wisdom, using heavy elements, the researchers showed that replacing atoms of heavier elements with lighter things like calcium and ytterbium with lighter magnesium led to threefold increase in the performance of these devices.
Wow, threefold
This
is
is
astounding.
This is a big deal, yeah.
This is a super big deal.
So basically, they're pointing out that thermoelectric materials create voltage from temperature differences between hot and cold sides of the material. And then if you have dissimilar metals, you can do other things too.
Yeah, but a threefold increase.
Yeah. So the neat
Wow.
thing about this is magnesium is lighter, it's more abundant. The idea that you're getting that kind of an increase.
Easier to work with.
So, that's why we're always
It's
saying,
cheap.
when people talk about not having any good news out there,
This is great news.
these kind of things happen every week.
Well, to imagine that something as cheap and easy to use as this
Yeah, and-
is going to give you a threefold increase.
Well, you can maybe even use milk of magnesium. And
I like the
work
milk
for
of
that.
magnesium.
Hey,
That-
listen, I
that's
just
some
have
good
about,
stuff.
I got like 10 seconds to tell
About
everybody.
10.
Please join us, if not for the live streaming on Saturday morning, 11 to 12. Look on our page and find out when you may hear subsequent rebroadcasts of the show.